Frank thought he was finally safe. Then one government letter told him he may have lost nearly 10 years of retirement income. At 67 years old, Frank realized one rushed decision during a layoff had quietly changed the rest of his life. And nobody warned him. What scared Frank most wasn't the money. It was discovering how many people his age were making the exact same mistake without even knowing it. Frank Miller lived in Dayton, Ohio, 67, widower, former machine supervisor. For 41 years, he never missed work, never asked for help, and every paycheck, Social Security taxes came out automatically. So when the factory downsized in early 2026, Frank believed he had earned a safe retirement. He was wrong. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. 3 pages, black ink, cold language. And one sentence Frank read 6 times. Your estimated lifetime benefits may be permanently reduced. Frank just stared at it. Then he whispered,
Permanent?
Factory ambience. The troubles started 1 year earlier. Frank was 62 when the layoffs happened. The company called it restructuring, but everyone knew what it meant. Older workers first. Frank still remembers the exact moment his manager avoided eye contact. That's when he knew he was done. At home, his daughter Lisa tried calming him down.
Dad, you'll figure it out.
But Frank wasn't hearing her, because for men like Frank, retirement wasn't freedom, it was fear. Bills piled up fast. Mortgage, insurance, groceries. And then the panic started. Not loud panic, quiet panic, the kind seniors never talk about. 3 weeks later, Frank sat in his car outside a Social Security office. Engine off, hands shaking. That's where he made the decision that would follow him for years. Inside the office, Frank met a representative named Denise. Tired eyes, fast voice, long line behind him. Denise said,
You can claim now if you need income.
Simple sentence. But Frank heard something different. He heard, You'll be okay. Nobody explained the long-term math clearly. Nobody asked about his savings, his health, his future plans. Frank just heard one thing, money now. So he claimed early, at 62, immediately reducing his monthly checks for life. At first, it felt like relief. The deposits arrived, the pressure eased. Frank even told his brother Ray,
I think I survived this thing.
But survival and stability aren't always the same thing. Because 6 months later, inflation exploded again, and suddenly the smaller checks didn't feel survivable anymore. Clock ticking. The hardest part wasn't poverty. It was embarrassment. Frank stopped going to breakfast with friends, stopped driving long distances, stopped turning the heat on at night. Then came the pharmacy incident, and that moment changed everything. At the counter, Frank quietly asked the pharmacist,
Is there a cheaper version?
The young cashier looked uncomfortable. People behind him sighed, and Frank felt something collapse inside him. That night, he opened his Social Security account online. That's when he saw the estimates. If he had waited even a few more years, his checks would have been dramatically higher. Frank leaned back in his chair and cried, not loudly, just quietly enough that nobody could hear him. A week later, Frank met his old coworker Walter for coffee. Walter looked relaxed, healthier, less afraid. And then Frank noticed something strange. Walter had also been laid off. Same year, same factory. But Walter wasn't struggling. Walter.
I waited until 70.
Frank froze. Frank.
What?
Walter.
I used savings first, delayed Social Security.
Frank suddenly felt sick because nobody had explained the difference that clearly before. Walter pulled out a napkin, started writing numbers, monthly difference, lifetime difference, survivor benefits. Frank stared silently. Every number felt heavier than the last. Then Walter said something Frank never forgot. Walter.
The government doesn't stop you from making a bad timing decision.
Silence. Coffee cups clink. Frank looked down at the table, like he was looking at a completely different life. That night, Frank couldn't sleep, so he started searching online. Best age to claim Social Security, early retirement regrets. How much do seniors lose by claiming early? Thousands of stories appeared. Veterans, widows, truck drivers, teachers, people terrified they made the wrong choice. And suddenly, Frank realized this wasn't rare. It was happening everywhere. Then he found a forum post from a retired nurse. One sentence stopped him cold. I claimed early because I was scared. Nobody explained what fear costs. Frank read it 3 times because that was it. Fear, not strategy. Fear made the decision. Then another problem appeared: healthcare costs. Frank's supplemental insurance premiums increased again. Groceries rose, utilities rose, but his Social Security check didn't rise enough to catch up. That's when Frank started considering returning to work. At 67, with arthritis in both knees, his daughter Lisa noticed the stress immediately. Lisa.
Dad, are you okay?
Frank almost lied. Almost. Then he finally admitted it. Frank.
I think I retired wrong.
Lisa didn't speak for several seconds because hearing your father say that changes something. Then she asked the question Frank had been avoiding for years. Lisa.
Did anyone actually explain the consequences to you?
Frank stared at the floor.
No.
Lisa convinced Frank to meet a nonprofit retirement counselor named Elena. No sales pitch, no investment products, just honesty. Elena said,
"You're not stupid, Frank. You were scared."
Elena explained something millions of older adults never fully understand. Claiming early can permanently reduce lifetime income, especially if you live longer than expected. And many people underestimate how long retirement actually lasts. Frank listened carefully. For once, nobody was rushing him. Elena said,
People panic during layoffs. That's when irreversible decisions happen.
Frank nodded slowly because suddenly the story made sense. This wasn't one mistake. It was fear, stacked on top of exhaustion, stacked on top of uncertainty. Months later, Frank adjusted, cut expenses, worked part-time at a hardware store, started budgeting carefully. But one truth still haunted him. He couldn't undo the timing decision. That permanence bothered him more than the money itself. One evening, Frank sat watching old home videos of his late wife, Carol, and softly said, "We thought we had more time. Not more life, more time to prepare." That's the part younger people watching this rarely understand. Retirement mistakes don't always happen because people are careless. Sometimes they happen because people are tired and afraid at exactly the wrong moment. Today, Frank tells everyone the same thing. Don't make permanent retirement decisions during emotional panic. Not after layoffs, not after market crashes, not after fear-driven headlines. Because fear changes math, and desperation shortens the future. Frank still lives carefully now, still watches every dollar, but he talks openly about what happened, because silence is how these mistakes spread. Last winter, his grandson asked him, "Grandson, Grandpa, What's the biggest mistake people make with money? Frank smiled sadly, then answered, They rush. And maybe that's the real warning hidden inside retirement. Not greed, not laziness, fear. And sometimes fear costs people the one thing they can never earn back, time. If this story felt familiar or reminded you of someone you love, share it with them before panic makes the decision for them.